InDesign has a wide variety of drawing tools, including a fully featured Bezier pen tool, just like Illustrator. Now, I wouldn't use InDesign to do a detailed technical illustration, but it's perfect for basic drawing, such as most logos and relatively simple shapes. Let me show you how it's done. I have my Roux article document open from the exercise files folder, and I'm just going to zoom in on the upper left corner here, just so I can have some space to work. Now, here in the tool panel, there are several tools that let me draw shapes. For example, the line tool. The line tool just draws simple lines. I can draw any angle I want. Notice that if I hold down the Shift key, it constrains the angle to either horizontal, vertical, or a perfect 45 degrees. Next down is a tool that's a little bit more interesting. That's the Bezier pen tool. Here, I can click and drag to create Bezier curves. All you need to do is click and drag. You get the idea. You can make a Bezier line very quickly. Now, you might use a line like this for text on a path. To edit this path, I would use the Direct Selection tool, the white arrow tool. When I choose the Direct Selection tool and place my cursor over the path, it highlights. Now I can click and drag points or their handles. I can even drag the segments between the paths. Dragging the segment between the paths changes the curve wherever I drag it. Here's another way to change the path. Switch back to the pen tool. I'll click on the pen tool, and now, whenever I place my cursor on top of a place that has no point, it changes into a little plus cursor, which indicates that if I click and drag, it's actually going to add a point. I'll click and drag. You can see that it's actually adding a point onto that curve. On the other hand, if I place my cursor over a position where there already is a point, it changes into a pen tool with a minus symbol. That means it's going to delete that point. Click, and the point goes away. Now, whenever you're editing paths with a pen tool, you can always hold down the Command key on the Mac or the Control key on Windows, which switches you back to the last used selection tool. In this case, the Direct Selection tool. That way, I can actually drag these points around or adjust their handles. Then, when I let go of the Command or Control key, it switches back to the pen tool. Okay, let's draw some more paths. I'm simply going to click out here and click a few times, and you can see that you can very easily get some very sharp-cornered paths. When you're done, you can either switch to a different tool or Command or Control click in a different area to finish the path. I'm going to draw another path down here, just with a few clicks, and then I'm going to select both of these paths with the Selection tool. With the two paths selected, I can go to the Object menu, and way down here at the bottom of the menu, you'll see the Paths submenu. This lets you do all kinds of things to paths. For example, I could join both of these so they become a single path. InDesign looks for where they're the closest, and then it draws a line between them. Now, all the features in that Paths submenu also live inside a panel. And if you're going to do a lot of things with paths, you should check out the panel instead. I'll go to the Window menu, scroll down to Object and Layout, and then choose Pathfinder. Let's move this off to the side so we can see what we're doing. This first button here is the Join command. That's what we just did. But there are a lot of other commands in here that you should know about. For example, you can open a closed path, like a closed frame, a text frame, or you could close an open path. In this case, what I have right now is an open path, doesn't close, and now I can close it by clicking on this third button. There you go. Now it's a closed path. There are all sorts of other goodies in this panel, but I just want to point out the Convert Shape buttons, this whole section down here. I find these things really useful. For example, it's very hard to draw a perfect triangle in InDesign, but it's really easy to click this button here. Just click, and you'll get a perfect triangle every time. Now, as you can tell, I'm not the greatest artist, but I do find these pen tools useful inside of InDesign, especially when I already have a frame that I want to tweak a little bit, if I want to make it a little bit more interesting. For example, this text frame down here. I'll just scroll down a little bit so we can see it better. And now I'm going to close my Pathfinder panel. I don't need that for this. And this is just a regular rectangular text frame. It's all very well and good, but it might be nice to give it a little flair. So I'm going to head over and choose the Pen tool. And then I'm going to Command or Control click on top of this frame to select it. Now, I'll place that pen tool right over the right edge of the frame. Remember, whenever you place the pen tool over the edge of a frame or path, it changes to the Add Point tool. And now I can click and drag. And you'll notice that as I click and drag, it changes the shape of the frame. It's still a text frame, but the text reflows in this shape. It's much more interesting now. Now, of course, if I really need heavy-duty illustration tools, I would switch to Adobe Illustrator. But in most cases, when I'm just trying to make my design look interesting, InDesign gives me everything I need.